And there you go. Welcome to Wireless Wednesdays.
Welcome to Wireless Wednesdays.
Yes.
Yeah. From one Land Rover. So yes, we will be covering the important topics of the wireless world as they happened this week. And hopefully we'll be not rushed off our feet and be able to join in a non-rushed fashion. That's never going to change, is it?
No, that's never going to happen.
No, it's not. May it never.
Yes, let me just check because I did not send the link to Frankie, who was trying to join. And of course, we're running around. Yeah, it's been a bit crazy. Do either of you two want to kick off whilst I try and get Frankie on?
Not hugely related to wireless 5G and what we're doing, but I was looking at some stuff on handsets and following what we talked about yesterday. It appears that almost 50% of the sales of 5G handsets are in the second-hand market, which is bizarre, which is incredible. You know, they're already being passed down. So new ones, and then companies like
Back market,
yeah, are doing them up and recycling.
I think that is
back into the marketplace, which is incredible.
It is incredible to hear, isn't it? It is. I would never have believed it.
No,
but it is.
Well, I was going to say there was World Earth Day this week, and the contributions were somewhat muted. Let me be polite and say they were somewhat muted from our UK brethren. I think it was Vodafone's contribution was, please look in your drawers, get your old handsets and drop them into our stores for recycling. Where BT
that was good of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, quite. BT have sponsored. I think it was one of the local SMB charities, business forums. It is of charitable status. Basically, to get them all carbon neutral by 2050. So that's going to change. Both of those will change my world. I don't know about you.
Oh, there you go.
What is there is a dreadful advert, I think, on YouTube in the UK at least, where there is like a cat that looks like Bagpuss doing like a takeoff of We Buy Any Car, but it's like recycle your devices. And it is so annoying. I almost do want to recycle the device by throwing it in the bin. But it's the sentiment is fantastic. But what I think is brilliant is that even though those adverts are absolutely awful, is that people are actually doing it. Because I do remember having lots of phones in my drawer, thinking they were worthless, but they're not. And I suppose this is a change now, whereas before they may have been used for someone's second handset or second SIM, they are now being used for someone else, because you can, with eSIM, you've got your two SIM devices where you need them.
I've got one here. Look, there you go. I've got.
Hi, Frankie.
No, lots of them.
Apologies,
dual SIM devices.
Yes. I was just saying, in the UK, there's a statistic that half of the 5G handsets are being sold in the second-hand market.
Okay.
Well, so it either reflects on the state of the economy, people can't afford to buy or lease new ones and they're going to the second-hand market, or it means they're actually built a little bit better and people have trust in buying in the second-hand market. I don't know.
Well, that has got better. There's another interesting statistic. Does anyone know when the first 5G networks were turned on?
Well, can it be about 3 years ago, can't it?
It was indeed. You win the prize, Andy, for the quickest person to know an answer to completely banal things. I am researching for another article. But it is indeed. The reason I did that is because I was stuck trying to do a connection on Edge yesterday in the centre of Bath. Not some silly little town, but a very big, important old. Granted, it's Roman, but I didn't know that meant that the connectivity was from the Roman era. But Edge is now over 20 years old. It was first turned on in 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
But yeah, so given if 50% of the handsets are now recycled and it's only 3 years old as a network, that is fantastic. That means people are massively embracing this. And I think it also means that the quality is going up, because I must admit, I bought a couple of these recycled devices before and they were awful.
Oh, really?
They were both obviously lemons that had been put into the system. Lemons is basically if someone returns something and they can't find it in the fault, and then they return it again and they return it again. But yeah, I think it's fantastic. It's great news. Let's see more of that, because there are lots of people who want to have the latest and greatest, and we are, let's be fair, marketed the latest and greatest by people who are selling the devices.
Yeah.
And to have that cycle, I know it's probably one we don't want to hear, but the truth is, the acceleration of innovation that we have is based on people buying new devices.
Yeah.
And it's what moves us forward.
It's about the planned obsolescence, right, of the old ones, and making them so that they really break and, like you said, can no longer work. And actually, when you think about it outside of a first world context, I mean, I was just speaking with one of the advisors to the High Commissioner at the UN, and he was saying in Africa, across the board, I know it's fancy, but I was trying to not call him the wrong name.
Name drop.
You get the award for the first name drop.
Name drop ever? Well, Victor was his name, but you guys wouldn't have known him, and most people I know you guys would know. So he was talking about this problem really across Africa, and that culturally, even if 5G comes in, the device market of what is in the hands of the users, and I think that that's like a sliding scale backwards to like the UK, and it's really happening, devices from a second and third resale perspective, across the globe like that.
Yes. No, it is interesting that the average spend on a device obviously has been lower, but also there's been all sorts of reasons that people have stuck with various types of devices around payment systems. But yeah, in the latest news of broken processes of network operators, I was trying to get into the EE system because they'd sent me an alert and whatever. But anyway, I was stuck in this cycle of please enter your email here to reset your password. It will expire within 20 minutes. Yeah. And I got the password about 25 minutes later. So I was stuck in this wonderful circle. So eventually I called them and I had to listen to 20 minutes. It wasn't quite 20 minutes, but a good amount of, we are now finally turning off our 3G network. If you have one of these devices, it's amazing. No? I mean, if you have one of these devices, you will not be able to call to hear this message even. I mean, who makes these processes? Anyway.
Yeah.
And they still come in the middle of the published data that like this week that looks at all of the mobile networks for broadband and the quad play, I suppose, and how they rate for customer service. Virgin Media takes the crown.
Yeah. It does. I read that, Carl, as well. They've been voted the worst, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. So they take the crown for being the worst. Have a guess. I mean, Andy notwithstanding, if you've read the article, have a guess who's the best. It'll shock you. It's not a network operator.
Tesco.
It's not. That would have been my guess.
Yeah.
Sky.
Oh.
Yeah, and that would have been my guess as well. But I assume Sky, Tesco's probably standalone and it links into obviously the club card and everything else. Well, Sky has a superb, world-class product, which is a core product, which mobile's bolted onto, whereas Tesco's standalone. So.
Well, I just left EE because of that same sort of get-on loop cycle, bad customer service experience. And I'm ancillary revenue for them because it's not my core market. And I moved to an MVNO that made it super simple for me to have the kind of, flexibility in the plan that I wanted. But you said decommissioning the 3G network. What about the 2G network? There's so many important things that run on it. You don't think it's like...
That's why it's staying.
Okay, so you think it is going to stay?
Oh, yeah, for quite a while. Yeah, I mean, it obviously will be phased out, but That's why they phased out 3G before, because all the emergency services, certainly in the UK, I don't know about Europe,
Are on
certainly
2G.
all work on the 2G network, all of them.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of radio pages and all sorts of things. So it's
and trackers. There are
and,
trackers welded into container ships with 10 and 20-year agreements. And just as they're about to... Sorry.
I was just going to say, so is the 2G network as energy hungry as the 3G network?
Well, that's a good one.
It depends where you want to say where the energy is used. The actual RAN access side is a lot more efficient in 5G, and as we go forward,
right.
So the air interface. In terms of the network, I would imagine that it is more efficient just because it's doing less. The amount of effort that goes into streaming your huge amounts of data is not that efficient. And it is fantastic, because I was having this discussion with a company that professes to be wonderfully eco, but they're still obsessed with selling 100 gigabyte packages. And it's like, well, if you actually use those 100 gig, or are encouraged to use 100 gig of mobile data versus using
fiber or something.
Fiber in the ground, which uses less energy than a snail going downhill in the rain, then I mean, but it's not that. And then there's the third factor, which is what devices are actually on it. So a lot of the devices that are still on the 2G network literally turn themselves on, once when it rains in Arizona, and not when it rains in England, fortunately. Otherwise, that would not be good. But I don't think that the devices are not that bad. The amount of, I suppose, the biggest problem is the spectrum, isn't it? That's been wasted, for want of a better word.
Yeah. But that, you guys were talking about greenwashing, at least in the hot topics for the week. And I have heard some of the justifications for shutting down 3G being about that energy efficiency and the 5G network and not needing to run that, but where is the sustainability in that process? Are we just decommissioning old hardware all over the place, or is it really that more effective?
We're into the grounds of that. There was a report, wasn't there, asking, they asked, I don't know, 20 people in network operators if they think Open RAN will contribute to energy saving. Guess what? Half of them said, I don't know. As well, we'll just, I mean, it's much of a much. The networks are getting more efficient, but at the same time, we're using more of them. So it's hard to guess, and it's hard to put a figure on how much people are using, because this is one of the things I think is most important with every MVNO I've done. People get obsessed with what the ARPU is, because they're upset. They have this view that there is a persona, like in marketing, that you can draw that uses this ARPU figure, when in fact, if you actually look at the statistics, the ARPU is an average of everything from 1 cent a month to £1,000 a month. And the amount of people who are exactly on the $13, to pick a number in the middle, is statistically very small. And so trying to get an average power consumption over time and over all these different variables is quite difficult. IoT is probably one of the ways to start, isn't it? But again, I mean, as IoT is getting cleverer, the devices are they're getting more chatty. So the average device ages ago used to send kilobytes, and now they're sending megabytes and gigabytes. So British Volt batteries, I suppose, does that lead on to batteries?
Well, there was something I wanted to discuss, which was EE's announcement in the UK, and it will be global because it's provided through the major shareholder, which is Telefonica, as we all know. Is they've taken the decision in the UK. Everybody's under pressure, which is crazy, really, for a small island. But there you go, to provide rural broadband. And this is of interest to us because projects we're doing with the government to provide our I guess, private network in rural locations for particularly high density events, where festivals, farmers markets, all the rest of it, where you get lumpy demand. And we've been using Starlink for quite a while, and they've just decided that it is the best solution since sliced bread for the rural projects. Now,
Just to point out, there are other providers of satellite services.
I was going to say, I was just about to say, BT use OneWeb, which is clearly great because the British interest there, which has
and Avanti,
etc. So I was just quite curious whilst, and you triggered your thoughts on the now defunct project for manufacturing batteries, which has now been resurrected. And it's all with a rural focus. So, and I know we've done this topic previously, but I just wanted to mention that, I'm not sure it went out to competitive tenders, given the major shareholder is Telefonica and provide the services, but it's an interesting angle anyway.
Well, a lot of these things, as long as they stay where they strategically needed to stay. I mean, the idea of transporting the elements that make up the batteries all around the world for processing, and then transporting them all around the world for manufacturing, then transporting them all around the world for distribution is kind of crazy, right? And given this last week, we said the biggest, I mean, I think the main reason that these 5G devices are going back is for the battery. No? It may be easier to buy a back market one than take your existing one to the shop and get the battery changed. I don't know. But having batteries local is a fantastic initiative as far as I'm concerned, and may it grow and flourish.
Yeah, we want to watch, that's for sure.
So yeah, and just to come back on the customer service, I mean, I've been a customer of Virgin Mobile's broadband for 20 years. And for about 10 of those years, I have paid for a product that I did not consume, just because it was easier to carry on paying the bill than solve the problem. And that includes telephone lines, which I moved from one house to another and never worked, even I think the record was in 5 years. In one, they never worked, and after a week, gave up. But also things like the television and broadband boxes, just carried on paying them. And the reason for that is that once when I rang up and said, no, I would not like to pay for them anymore, they said, yes, we'll change your service. And I spent about 6 weeks without a service whilst they changed it. So it's like, no, I will carry on paying you the extra. So yeah, it is about time that these old processes get a kick as much as the old systems do. But it is, at the end of the day, it's impossible to provide an amazing new service if you're still using crappy old systems.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of service at the end of the day, can come down to how you train your humans, even if the process is, bad. If you get to somebody at the end of the day who then knows what is happening, has authority to fix it when you finally got them on the phone, a lot can be done in that human to human reaction to repair faulty old legacy services, because we always have to be able to move. But to just leave them in place, let the human aspect degrade and be like, here you go, consumers, you've got my leftovers warmed up in a microwave.
And then left for a while.
Right.
They're on continuous reheat.
They went on vacation.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if you had the same concept of school dinners, Frankie, but we had the concept of school dinners where you had some things that would be sort of bubbling away. So you'd have like a big bowl of beans that were bubbling at the corner until they dried out and went crispy. That's the kind of
beans bubbling in a corner is a staple in every school lunch.
They're the best bits.
We have highlighted there a lot of processes are actually in people's heads, and if you've got good people, you can get around good processes. And that's key. But
it goes back to what we were talking about at least a few weeks ago when I was on, about how do how do we create metrics that impact carrier valuation that take some of these other very important things into consideration? I mean, is there a way for, consumers at that point, like this study, Carl, what happens with it, right? Like, is it just like, okay, here's who's the worst and enjoy your knowledge?
Well, my take on it is that all of these companies are now trying to get rid of call centers. So their customer experience is one that both go through an app or go through a bot or whatever you do. And we've got billions of help pages, none of which are useful. And people can't get to speak to a human being. We've all experienced it. And therefore, what you end up with is people just going, I'm dissatisfied. There's a very much, to my mind, from a consumer experience, it's like we said, we'll put up with it, but we don't put up with paying with it. We just downgrade or don't upgrade, and ultimately it costs them quite a bit of money. It would be my take on it. But I mean, that's an opinion, Frankie, to be honest.
Well, that's what we're given here, right?
Well, I think it comes back to your point, Frankie, when you said you just moved. But obviously, I think where Virgin Media has been lucky is that they've had 350 gig, 500 gig, and 350 meg, 500 meg, and now a gig internet in more places than anyone else has had. And I think once they lose that, then with customer service, where it's actually the only way to actually speak to somebody is to cancel your service and then reorder it, to actually get a human to visit your property is pretty bad.
That brings up an interesting point about unique value propositions, right? And if you're taking a look at any of the regulatory stuff happening in the MVNO world right now, there's a little bit of a push and a shove about an MNO giving access or preferential, capabilities to one platform and not the other. And, how much of that do you think is or should be commercially controlled, or is there a feeling that that's really is anti-competitive and should be continued to be, pushed against?
Which is this? Is this a net neutrality point, or is it
in the US? I mean, so it's a service. It's a service option, connectivity that can be bundled into the, the offers that the MVNO is providing to their user base. And, at an engineering level within the MNO, one is getting more access than the other is getting. And they're large enough for that to make a difference to both of them. So there's some, pushback. Is that purely commercial in your all's opinion, or is that the kind of thing where, especially considering that you can leverage your unique value propositions to provide bad customer service, like Virgin is doing, is that something that really is just commercial?
I don't know. I don't want to get embroiled in there. I think if there is ultimately a commercial reason behind it, so one of the only time that I ever heard a rational decision for this was the fact that a large amount of the costs for access to internet are for peering to the big consumers, the video products. So there is an argument the other way around to say, well, actually, I don't have enough money to pay for a Netflix subscription, and so why should I be subsidizing essentially the Netflix generation? Can I have a cheaper access to internet that just lets me do the things that I do? I don't know. That's a much wider debate.
Yeah, it is.
But it then, I think the more scary thing is that, you should be able to access anything. No? I don't know if that's where that one was going on. And I think the biggest thing that I find most scary is that for 20 years, Virgin was voted the best network operator when it was just literally a virtual mobile network operator piggybacking off of their host, whilst their host was most often voted the worst. And you know what? The key determining factor is cutting costs in the call center. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
and I suppose also making the product more complex. No? As Virgin got to a certain number, and this is a problem with MVNOs that a lot of people don't see, is that yes, it's wonderful to scale, but there comes a point when an MVNO becomes so big that the only way to grow is by doing MNO things like subsidizing handsets.
Yeah.
And that then puts you in this pot of going onto a website and going, you have 17 million products. What do I choose? It's very hard. So yeah, it reminds me, and this is a terrible, one of my first business experiences was when I was a little child. I used some little marbles to get bigger and bigger marbles, and I was playing them against each other, these amazing marbles, and they both smacked against each other and broke into a million pieces. It's the business. It is a big problem. The MVNOs become so big that they are their own problem now.
Yeah, that was a good analogy with your marbles. Sorry, go ahead.
But there was something in the news recently. Was it only today? I think that Leica are taking 3 to court, aren't they, about their proposed takeover of, is it Mint Mobile?
Yeah, it is T-Mobile, Mint Mobile, and they're claiming
So Leica acting as I mean, Leica Mobile are big anyway. You know, a huge MVNO, but acting like an MVNO, starting to take other MNOs to court. You know, that's an interesting prospect, isn't it? You know,
it's not the first time they've done it.
No, I know, Carl, I know, but it's
those two words have been heard together many a time. But we won't go there.
No.
Allegedly, everything I just said was allegedly.
No.
So green, I suppose I mean, we are getting to greener times little by little. We're starting with the handsets. We've moved on dramatically with eSIMs, which are dramatically better for the environment than a SIM, where 90% of the plastic gets chucked in a bin and comes usually with a horrendous amount of packaging and other bump, which is good. We just need to work deeper into the network, don't we?
Well, I saw an interesting stat in that document about 5 billion unused handsets, like old handsets sitting around in people's homes and office drawers and whatever. That's a number from the BT report. I think that's an absolutely staggering amount.
It is.
But it is better than them being in landfill.
I guess. I mean, it's just waiting to get to landfill if it stays where it is, right? Because at some point they will, all of them, if there isn't an established recycling strategy that, you know, is easy and can be facilitated and, you know, is light on the consumer touch points, they all end up in the landfill at some point.
Yes, well, we do need to get there, because I'm getting more. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, and it's a slight aside, but every time I look at a piece of packaging in the supermarket, it seems every day there is more packaging that says only to be recycled in the larger supermarkets. I'm going, no one goes to large supermarkets anymore. The hypermarkets were made and then nobody went to them. So yeah, we do need to carry on this theme. And on that point, I did hear somebody mention the other day, I just want to mention as well on the satellite things, if you want to know more about the satellites, we should link to the amazing, we went to an amazing event organized by Cambridge Wireless, where I was worried at one point that Carl was going to go, because there were some very meaty presentations, but they were all absolutely fascinating. They were fascinating, weren't they, on the world of satellites? And
they were, and they were, and there were some great pastries as well, to be fair. So,
and
class.
You missed pastries, Andy. It's I hate to say.
No, there's stuff on the future strategy of satellite technology. I mean, the one stat I walked away with was it since 1950 when the first satellite went into space, we'd launched until about 18 months ago, we'd launched 1,000 satellites in the last. And now,
until 10 years ago.
Until 10 years ago, was it, Christian? Sorry, thank you. And now we've launched 7,000 and predicted in the next 2-3 years to be 25,000, mostly low Earth orbit, which, frankly, as they said, had a life expectancy of 5 to 7 years. Which
well, they do, and you know why, don't you?
Yeah, because you can't carry the fuel. The guy was saying so.
Correct, absolutely correct.
Which means there you go. There's a new product we've invented as man, and is not immediately not green.
Yeah. Yeah, the first communications satellite was launched. It was Russian. It's called Sputnik. It was launched in 1957.
Okay.
I think you're wrong there, Andy. Sputnik was a band. But,
yeah.
But no, you are right. Sorry, I just.
Carl, that they have just to the little when a satellite runs out of its natural life, literally they just turn it round and fire out on the boosters whichever fuel it's got left, and it goes into what they call a graveyard orbit. It could be 1 million miles from where it is, or it could be 10 miles. They don't know. They just turn it around, fire up the boosters to use up the fuel, and send it out into space somewhere. And it's called the graveyard orbit.
Great name.
And at least it's not in landfill. You see, this is going to be the theme.
Yes,
at least it doesn't go to landfill. Well, one of the things that was mentioned in that event, and I'd love to end on and start another thing, is what was the phrase, Carl? I don't know if you were there in that conversation. It was watts per megabit. You know, what is the actual cost of supplying that service? And I suppose this is the way we go from the eSIM, which is a lot greener, to handsets now being recycled, which is a lot greener. The next key point has to be how many watts or even kilowatts, people may be surprised, went into that megabit or gigabit, I suppose we'd have to say. And that has got to be the key metric going forward, isn't it? To work out how much. You know, there's no point buying cheap lots of this race to unlimited, super unlimited, maxi unlimited, 200 gig.
I put a link in the chat, an MVNO that I heard about who did a presentation at one of the Mobile World Congress wrap-ups. And they are a low Earth orbital satellite MVNO offering, again, one of these like super unlimited in your local coverage and unlimited satellite anywhere in the world. Plus, they've got AI and, which you guys will have to check out. This is why I'm bringing it up. Some sort of holographic avatar that you get another device and you like scan yourself, and this like holographic avatar AI thing is somehow part of their MVNO service. But it really made me go, what? And I
exactly, it's got my interest.
And so horizontel.net, I'd be interested to know what you guys think about them, because it's 199 pounds for the year. Unlimited.
If you manage to throw the metaverse and augmented reality as well as AI, it's I have a we need an AI DAR, don't we?
Yeah, well, I read with 6G. I know we're only on 5G, but with 6G, it's going to be so fast. There'll be the capability of, if you remember the old days, we used to go and sit in video conference rooms, didn't we? We wouldn't have do it on a laptops like this. You have to go on a video conference room and line it all up and all that sort of thing. Well, apparently with 6G, it's going to be fast enough to have produce holograms sit in the chair next to you, so you and I could be sat just chatting face to face.
This is what these guys claim to be able to do, and somehow the AI allows you to program in, like if it's a meeting, so you could like preload your AI video of yourself into the meeting.
Yeah.
And like do multiple of them at once.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I have a very good looking avatar on mounting the seat next to everyone.
Well, can it be like all the other avatars where we can look like wherever we want and like have,
and that's where my head was at.
Inc. type. Yeah,
quite. And I think having run 5 minutes over, we probably pick this up next time.
Sorry about my.
No, not at all. I was fascinated by that.
We shall speak to you next week on other exciting topics, and I look forward to it.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.